Good everyone, my name is Graphics. Today we want to study an aspect of mechanical engineering science which is called center of gravity. Like in my previous video, I make you understand that center of gravity is the point at which all the weight of the body acts, right? And we want to take the center of gravity of this plane figure. Now, first thing you do is that you divide your figure into as many parts as you can divide it. The lowest possible division, that's what you do. Lowest what? Possible division. Now, the lowest possible division here is dividing it at this point and at this point. Right? So I'll be having something like this. Can you see? So it's forming three rectangles. This is the first rectangle, this is the second rectangle, and this is the third rectangle. So we are going to be having something like this. This top here, we know that the length of this top here from here to here is given as what? 80 millimeter. I'm talking about the one here, right? And the breadth here, I would like to say the height, is given as what? 10 millimeter, right? Now also I have this one also. I have this, which is this. I have this too. This, which is the center here, and which is 2. Now if you look from here to this point here is what? 70. So the height of the second figure here is 70 millimeter, right? But if you look at the thickness of the figure is what? 10. So the thickness from here to here is 10 millimeter, right? So now also for the lowest part, which is 3, we're going to have this way. That's the third figure. So the length from here to here is given as 60 millimeter, and the height here, or the breadth, is given as what? 10 millimeter. So this is, if you break them to you having this 3-way. Now we are going to we want to analyze this, taking the vertical section along y-axis. We want to look for center of gravity along y-axis. What I mean by center of gravity, if I have this plane figure this way now, right, and I'm assuming that the height of this figure is 50 and the width is what? It's 100. Now center of gravity means that along y-axis is half of 50, which is what? 25. So from here to here is 25, right? Along x-axis, which is 100, the half of it is what? Is 50. So the center of gravity is when 25 and 50 meet to give center of gravity of this figure. Is that okay now? So we want to start now. Now since it's a plane figure, so I'm going to look for center of gravity along what? Along y-axis. Along what? Y-axis. Are we good? And I also look for the plane figure along x-axis too, like this. Along x-axis. This is x-axis, right? But let's before consider y-axis. Now, considering the y-axis, now I'll write recall my y bar is the center of gravity along y, and that is given as summation of what? All the area multiply by all the distance of y, all the distance along y-axis, right? All over what? The summation of what? The area. Now this means, since I have 3 figures here, so I'll be having the A1 multiplied by y1 plus the A2 multiplied by y2 plus the A3 multiplied by y3, everything all over what? A1 plus A2 plus what? A3. Taking. This is my formula. I have 3 figures, so I'm going to give them into 3 different parts. Now we'll move forward, so we'll start considering them one after the other. So the first thing we'll look for A1. We'll look for Y1, Y2, Y3, right? So for Y1, now if you look at Y1, now don't forget this is the same figure here. Let's continue to break them down here. Look at Y1. Y1 is just like you are in this second floor. You are in the second floor, right? This one is dependent on 2, it's dependent on 3, because without 2 and 3, you cannot rise to 1, right? So you need to travel 70 plus 10 millimeter. You need to travel 80 millimeter to this point, because from here to here is 10, from here to here is what? 70. So 10 plus 70 is 80. So you need to travel 80 millimeter to get to this one here. So you are going to write the 80 as a whole figure, because that is not what you are considering. So 80 plus what you are considering is what? 1, Y1. So you are considering 1, Abi, and the thickness of 1 is 10. So because you are considering that 10, we're going to look for the center of gravity along that y-axis. So the center of it is what? Is half of 10. Like I showed you earlier here. The center of 50 here is half of 25. So the center of 10 here is half of what? 10. The center of this figure here is half of what? 10, because the total distance here is what? 10. Are we good? So from here, this will now give us 80 plus what? 5, and that will be what? 85 millimeter, right? Now as we look for Y1, we also look for what? A1 too. Now if you look for A1, it is a rectangle, and the area of a rectangle is what? Length times breadth, right? So the length here is 80, while the breadth here is what? Is 10. So I'll be having 80 times 10. So this will give me 80 times 10. 80 multiplied by 10, and that will give us 800 millimeter square. Now for Y2, now if you look at this Y2 here, now Y2 means figure 2. The figure 2 is dependent on the figure 3, because before you get to the figure 2, you will travel 10 millimeter before you get to this 70. You travel 10 before you get to what? 70. So because you are traveling here, but what you are considering, you will not divide this 10, you divide the distance of what you are considering. So it will be 10, the distance that you travel, right? 10 plus the distance that you are considering divided by 2, center of this 70. So that will be 70 all over 2. 70 divided by what? 2. And that will give us what? 10 plus what? 30 what? 35. And that will give us 45 millimeter. Now similarly, you look for what? A2. A2, because you're looking for every value we have here. So my A2, you go to this figure 2, it means the length times what? The breadth. So it will be 10 times 70, because it's also a rectangular figure. So we have 10 times 70. 10 times what? 70. And that will give us what? 700 millimeter square. Now for A3, for Y3, now if you look at now, this is like the ground floor. It's not dependent on anything. The only thing is dependent on is what? 0. Abi? So you travel 0 distance plus 10 divided by 2. So you are traveling 0 distance plus what? 10 divided by 2, because you are considering the what? This distance here. So you are not traveling any distance to get to this point here. So it will be 0 plus 10 divided by 2. Now this will now give me 0 plus what? 5, and that will give us what? 5 millimeter. So my A3 here will now give me the area of a rectangle of this third figure here, and that is what? Length times breadth, which will be 60 times 10. So we'll be having what? 60 times 10. 60 multiplied by 10, and that will give us 600 millimeter square, right? So therefore we are going to input this into this formula. So you now write that therefore my y bar will be equals to A1. What is A1? A1 is 800 multiplied by y1. What is y1? Y1 is 85. Close the bracket. Plus A2. What is A2? That will be 700 multiplied by what? Y2. Y2 is what? 45. Close the bracket. Plus A3. This is A3 here, 600 multiplied by what? Y3. Y3 is what? 5. So everything all over what? A1 plus A2 plus A3, that will be what? 800 plus 700 plus 600. So my y bar will now be giving me 800 times 85. 800 times 85 will give me 800 times 85, 68,000. So I'm having 68,000 here. 68,000 plus 75 divided by 45. So 75 700 multiplied by 45, 31,500. So I have 31,500 plus 600 times 5, that is 3,000. So everything divided by what? 800 plus 700 plus 600, that will be 2,100. That is 800 plus 700 plus 600. So we have 800 plus 700 plus 600, and that is 2,100. Yep. So we have 2,100. So my y bar here will now be giving me as 6,800 plus 3,1,500. We have 6,800 plus 3,1,500 plus 3,000. Guys, 68,000 here. 68,000. That will be 102,500. So we have 102,500 divided by what? 2,100. So my y bar will now give me 2,100 divided by 2,100, and we're having 48.81. 48.81 millimeter. That is my center of gravity along y-axis, right? Center of gravity along what? Along y-axis. So along this axis. So it means that if I travel 48 along y, I'll get the center of the vertical axis. So the next one I want to do now is what? Along x, right? So now you are considering along the x-axis. Now if you look at for my x-axis, now we'll say that my s bar is equals to what? Summation of what? Area times distance along x-axis all over the summation of area times what? The distance, right? So this will now give me A1 x1 plus A2 x2 plus A3 x3 all over what? A1 plus A2 plus what? A3, right? So we are going to be looking for x1, x2, x3. Are we good? So what is my x1? Now this is what you need to understand here. If I'm going along my x1, you realize that the total length of this figure along x-axis is what? 80, right? And this x, when I'm going around x, is not dependent on anybody. This is the beginning of the figure, 0, and this is the ending, which is 80, right? So I'll say that my x1 is what? 80 divided by what? Divided by 2. Or better say that since it's not dependent on anybody, 0 plus what? 80 divided by 2. And that will give me 40 millimeter. I'm saying 0 because of what? It's not dependent on anything here. It's just going starting from here and ending here. Now the next figure here. What you do here is this now. If you recall, this figure is just staying at the center of this figure. This long figure here. And it is what? 10 millimeter. So if from here, let me just draw it out so it's what I'm trying to make you understand here. If from here, let's see, if from here is 80, from here to here is what? 80. I'm talking about from here to here is 80, right? If you remove 10 and the center here is what? Is 10. That is the thickness here is what? 10. How good? Now if you remove 10 from 80, what will remain? 70. So if I spread it evenly across these two distances, here will be what? 35, and here will be what? 35. So 35 plus 10 plus 35 is what? 80, right? Now if you look at it now, if I'm going to the figure 2, so let's say this is figure 2 here, we are considering the center aspect here. So before I get to this figure 2 here, I'm going to travel a distance of what? 35 millimeter to get to this figure 2 here. Just like what I just analyzed here. I'll travel 35 to get to the center, right? So I'm going to be having 35 plus the center I'm about to consider is what? Is 10, right? It will be 10 all over 2. And that will give me 35 plus 5. And that will give me what? 40 millimeter, right? Then my x3. Now if you go to the x3, similarly, if you look at this now, this is 60, right? Let's consider it again. This is 60. Let me use from here. Now this is 60. The base floor is 60, right? Now the total length of the figure is 80. So that means you remove 60 from 80, you'll be left with what? 20. So if I now spread it across evenly, so that means this is 10 at this side, and this is what? 10 at this side here. So that means before I get to this 60, I'm going to travel a distance of what? A distance of 10 before I get to what? This figure. The beginning is 10, 10 plus 60, 70 plus the extra 10, just to make these two figures here balance at the same length. So what I'll do is, it will be 10 plus what? The 60 all over 2 that I'm considering. 60 over 2. And this will give me 10, right? Plus 30. And that will give me 40 millimeter. Now the area doesn't change. A1, A2, and A3 will not change because the same figure we're considering. So we know my A1 is given as 800, right, millimeter square. A2 is given as 700 millimeter square. A3 is given as what? 600 millimeter square. 600 millimeter square. So the total that we have is 21, right? Which we know. So from here we'll start putting our value in this figure. Now naturally, since everything is 40 here, so there's no big deal. My x bar is equals to what? 40. Or if you want me to prove it out, let me prove it out so you see. So my x bar here will give me, what is A1? A1 is 800 multiplied by 40 plus, because S1 is 40, A2 is 700 multiplied by S2, which is 40. 700 multiplied by 40 plus A3 is 600 multiplied by 40. Everything that we have here divided by what? 100. For the long run, my X bar will now give me 32,000 plus 28,000 plus 24,000. Everything over what? 2,100. So this will now be my X bar will now be giving us 32,000 plus 28,000 plus 24,000 will give me 84,000, right? Everything over what? 2,100. So my X bar will now be equal to what? 40 millimeter. So this is the distance along x-axis, along this figure, x-axis. The distance along x-axis, center of gravity of this figure from here to 40, right? Will be the center. So if you find this video helpful, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and share with family and friends. Thank you very much.